Welcome to worship at the McPherson Church of the Brethren. We are an open and affirming congregation that strives to be hospitable and attentive to all of creation. We do not always meet that goal, and we have our share of ups and downs. But in the midst of it all, we continue to listen to God's call on our individual lives and the life of this congregation. We continue to seek to follow Jesus, peacefully, simply, together. We are humbled you have chosen to worship with us. Welcome.
Good morning, church. Whether you're here in person or virtually, all are welcome. And for those of you who are active gardeners, you're probably celebrating the 2.5 or more inches of rain. But if you're a wheat farmer, you're probably crying in your beer. I would like to suggest that as we share this morning with each other, share the one thing that you're grateful that God is the one who is the creator and sustainer. What has God done for you that you want to share with others around you? Please greet each other and share what God has done for you. Instructions were to share one thing, not everything. As is true as we gather as brethren, we have lots of things to share and many things to be grateful for. What kind of joys or concerns do you have that you want to share with the congregation today?
Lois Grove. Roger, to answer your question, God has put me in touch with a marvelous group of people in this faith community. And the latest issue of Messenger highlights that. Bev and I had a project going in Sunday school to be in solidarity with the people of Uvalde during this latest anniversary of those children dying. And it was submitted to Messenger, and they chose to print it. It says that Lois Grove wrote it. Lois Grove did not write it. It was Ann Stover.
Shane Kirshner on behalf of the AV team. I can run sound from right here on my little laptop. This summer we have about 5 who run the crew every week. And over the course of the summer, there's going to be weeks where at least 3 of us who are experienced, or sometimes 4 of the 5, are going to be gone. So we could use some assistance upstairs. And if you want to just get an easy start, we could have you run a camera. We even tell you where to point, where to focus, where to zoom in. It's a pretty simple job. And if you want to get more advanced than that, we'll train you on that as well. So if you're interested in helping with AV this summer, let me know.
Good morning, Kara Hudson. I have 2 announcements, one on behalf of Becky Snell. This Saturday, the 15th, at 7 p.m. is the S'mores Night at Bruce and Barb Wagner's house for working adults. You are welcome to bring a lawn chair and a s'mores stick if you have one, and we will have fun and have fellowship. Second announcement. This weekend is McPherson Pride, and the final event is today, this afternoon, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. at Lakeside Park at Shelter 1. We will be having plenty of food left over from the festivities yesterday. So please come, and it's a family-friendly event to celebrate our LGBTQ plus community here in McPherson.
My name is Brent Sugart. I want to embarrass my daughter for a second. I praise God for a great week at Scout Camp, and I praise God for her because she kept down the fort while we were gone, took care of the dogs, took care of the house, along with her job, and starting a new 2 classes at HCC. So prayers for her for good classes this year, and thank you. I'm so glad to be back home with her.
Hello, Jan Hurst here. I'm speaking on behalf of the Emily Dell family. I've been asked to make this announcement, and they would like to invite all of the church to Emily Dell's Celebration of Life service on June the 29th. That's a Saturday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and you're all invited to the reception downstairs afterward too. And they would love to hear your special stories at that time. The ways that you've known Emily. And there will be a kids' table too, and people coming from 8 states. So you might see somebody you know from another state. So I hope you can come to that.
Carolyn Schrock. This coming week is our big week of Vacation Bible School. If you have not registered your children yet, please do. We're trying to form groups, and we need to know who's going to be there. And for those, we have a wonderful team of adults that are preparing many different things for this week. And I will be out there at the Mennonite Church. We are not at this location, but at the Mennonite Church at 9 o'clock to start setting up tents and canopies, etc. So if you are wondering what time, 9 o'clock and after. I have one request from Kim Jansen. She's our baker, and she is in need of about 3 more mini muffin tins, you know, the muffin tins that are the little ones. She would like to borrow, if you can help her out, 3 more of those. Thank you. See you all tomorrow.
I know this is a left-leaning congregation, but are anybody on the right side needing to share as well? Catherine.
It's a girl. That's what you need to know. It's a girl. Julia and Jared Cutler were expected to have a C-section next week, and that baby decided to come a little sooner. So Zoe Elizabeth arrived yesterday by C-section by the time they got to the evening. She is fine. They are all fine. They are at Newton Medical Center, and a prayer chain went out this morning. If you're interested in how you might support and help, you can read that or call the office, and you can get information that way. So welcome, Zoe.
I'm glad you said that, Roger. Larry Loganville, we have a couple things going on with my many jobs I'm doing. They put down that I'm a carpenter for the VBS week. I'm really a plumber. So if things don't look right when your kids come home with whatever, I'll remind you I'm a plumber. It does look like it'll be a fun weekend. We started off with getting 1 3/4 inches rain last night, so I won't be in the wheat field. I won't have to worry about that tomorrow, I don't think. On another note, Mennonite Disaster Service, MDS, I also work with. And there is a cabinet shop in Gossel, Kansas, of all places. There's a cabinet shop. They're having a open house today at 4 to 8 o'clock. They're going to have some speakers, people coming in at 5:30. So if you're free and you want to make a little trip to Gossel, it's over by on the east side of Gossel. You really can't miss it. It's on the main drag, and right by the bank, Assistant State Bank.
Any other sharing that people want or need to do? If not, let's quiet our hearts and our minds and focus on the worship of God.
Please join me as we open our worship in prayer. Sacred Creator, please join me. Sacred Creator, you are within us, present wherever we live and breathe, closer than all our sighing. You are inside our bodies, pulsing in our very life blood. Your rhythm is in each and every heartbeat. We feel you in our suffering and in our happiness, fighting for our welfare, sharing your love and grace. O God of earth and heaven, we serve you where we are. We love you in all people. We praise you in your world. May we be your captive, God. Please rise and join in singing "Make Me a Captive, Lord." be seated, and would the children come forward for the children's time with Malia? Congregation, you may or may not know that Malia has blessed us by saying yes to coordinating Mac Kids next year. So you will be seeing a lot of Malia, and we thank you for that.
Dane today?
Yes. I don't know where Dane is. Where's he? Oh, fun. Well, good morning, guys. I'm happy to see you all here. Are you guys enjoying your summer? Yeah? Okay, well, today during worship, Pastor Catherine is going to share a story from the Bible about Samuel and the people of Israel. I'm not going to share too much because I want to leave that to her. But today she will share how the people of Israel wanted to be like everybody else. They wanted to be like all the other nations, and they wanted to have a king rule them. And in asking for a king, they betrayed God because they did not think that he was fit to be their king. And this upset Samuel, so he prayed to God, and God told him to give the people what they want. Even though they rejected God as their king, he told them to give them a king. And later on, we'll find out that they regretted their decision. So today, I have a Spot the Difference coloring page for all of you guys. And I want you guys to go look through the pictures and spot all the differences, because I want you guys to understand that it is perfectly okay to be different, because the world needs each and every one of you guys, okay?
How many differences are there?
There are 8 differences in each of the pictures. And the pictures are all the same, but I'm sure that after you guys color them, they will all look just a bit different. Okay, so I'll pass one out for you. Do you want one? And there you go. Charlie, you want one? Okay, so I want you guys to remember to embrace your differences and love your differences. I'll have you guys come up here. And to not want to be like everybody else. And we'll see you guys next week.
Thank you for your continued financial donations. You may give online at macbrethren.org. That's MacCobb at macbrethren.org. If you are worshiping with us in person, you may place your gift in the offering box at the back of the sanctuary. Just slip it through the slot in the top of the box. Or you may mail your gift to the church office at 200 North Carey Street, McPherson, Kansas 67460. Or hand deliver your check to the church office. Just push it through the mail slot at the education building. If you join our worship from afar, please donate to local needs in your area. Thank you for sharing.
Jesu
Thank you. Last Sunday, we remembered how Samuel's mother Hannah had prayed to conceive him, promising that if he was born, she would surrender him to the temple, to be raised at the temple, and she did conceive. And Hannah did surrender Samuel at around the age of 3, surrendered him to the temple to be raised and be mentored by the priest Eli. Also last Sunday, we heard the story of God calling Samuel to be the anointed one, the judge, the prophet, who would represent God's voice to God's people after the demise of the priestly house of Eli, because the priestly house of Eli had been called at the time of the Exodus, and God had said, "You will be no more. Your lineage and your line will cease to exist. I will bring this about because you and your family have turned away from me." Now, this Sunday, we will begin to journey with Samuel. We will hear about his call after the end of the house of Eli. And at this time, I would like to share excerpts from that story out of chapter 4 of 1 Samuel. And then at the beginning of the message, we will go back and pick up the rest of the story. Hear these words now from 1 Samuel chapter 4. Israel was defeated by the Philistines, and the ark of God was captured, and Eli's 2 sons, Hophni and Phinehas, died. That same day, a Benjamite ran from the battlefield and went to Shiloh. When he arrived, Eli was sitting on a chair by the side of the road, watching, because his heart feared for the ark of God. The man hurried to Eli, who was 98 years old, whose eyes had failed, and Eli said, "What happened, my son?" And the man brought the bad news, replying, "Israel fled before the Philistines. The army has suffered heavy losses. Also, your 2 sons, Hophni and Phinehas, they died, and the ark of God has been captured." Eli fell backward off of his chair by the side of the gate. His neck was broken, and he died. He was an old man. He had led Israel 40 years. As we journey together through this Israelite history, this journey with Samuel, remember that we are recounting the history of Israel that was ruled by tribal leaders and now is being ruled by judges and will eventually be ruled by kings, just as you heard Malia talk about. As we take this journey with Samuel, I invite you to continually think of the lessons for our modern day lives. Think of ways in which these people, living thousands of years ago, are very much like us, or maybe more appropriately, we are like them. So we heard in that bit from chapter 4 of the demise of Eli. We heard of his son's death. We heard of his death. But we also heard that the Ark of the Covenant, what represents the relationship between the Israelite people and God, the Ark of the Covenant, has been captured. The author of 1 Samuel has previously established that Samuel has learned to say to God, "Speak, your servant is listening." And Samuel will do the will of God. So at this point, here's what we know. Eli hears his sons have been killed, the ark has been captured, and he dies. If you want a little smile, you should really read that particular scripture. It's written interestingly. And Samuel is the judge, the one through whom God will speak to the people of Israel. And then we begin in chapter 5. We hear the story, and that's what we're going to talk about today. What's going on with the Ark of the Covenant while it's in the hands of the Philistines? And actually, as you hear this narrative, it might be more accurate to speak of what's happening to the Philistines because the Ark is in their presence. Think about a time in your own life when you may have a physical possession. Maybe it's a family heirloom, maybe it's something somebody gave you that the kids of that person really didn't want you to have, they wanted you to have. Think of a financial boon somebody gave to you that you really didn't earn, some kind of blessing that came to you that carries with it maybe some kind of sketchy background or something that makes you feel uncomfortable to have that thing in your presence or own it or have it in your house. And then think about, did you ever have those fleeting thoughts where you think, wow, I really shouldn't have this, and ever since I had this, bad things have been happening. And my parents accumulated lots of stuff over the years, like many parents do. They were in their house in Windsor, Colorado for 50 years. So when we dug out the house, there was lots of stuff, and everything was precious, right? And we were trying to be very, very, very respectful, but you have to deal with stuff. So that stuff went to my sister's basement in Nebraska, and my mom died last fall, so we're still dealing with piles and piles and piles of stuff. And then Chris's dad died last fall as well, so we're still dealing with stuff. And we just went to the garage 2 days ago, and we found a crate, a trunk, and Chris said, "Why do you have the kids' pictures in the garage in a trunk?" I'm like, I don't have the kids' pictures in the garage in a trunk. And we opened that trunk, and it was his parents' trunk of keepsakes with pictures of the kids that we had given them. And so we're finding yet another trunk that we need to go to. And we've been, both of us, surprised in our families of origin of what had meaning for our siblings. We both come from a family of 5. We've both lost a sibling early in their lives in their 50s, so there's 4 in each of our families. And we were surprised by ourselves, and we were surprised by our siblings and what was precious to them, and we didn't know, and we have all had to work through that. So here are the Israelites with the Ark of the Covenant, right? And they invest in that thing, the relationship with God. Okay, God and their relationship with God is really not in the Ark of the Covenant, right? But that's what they perceive. So the Philistines think, ha, this is their symbol, we're going to steal it and we're going to take it. So they take it. And this is from chapter 5. After the Philistines had captured the Ark of God, they took it from Ebenezer to Ashdod. They carried the Ark into their temple, and they set it beside Dagon, their god. And when the people of Ashdod rose early the next day, their god Dagon had fallen on his face on the ground in front of the Ark of God. They took Dagon, they put him back in his place, and the following morning when they rose, there was Dagon, fallen on his face on the ground before the ark of God. His head and his hands had been broken off. They were lying on the threshold. Only his body remained. God's hand was heavy on the people of Ashdod and its vicinity. God brought devastation on them and afflicted them with tumors. Do any of you remember the old movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger, Kindergarten Cop, when he's undercover and he's kindergarten cop and there's smart-mouthed little kindergartners running around, and the one kid is paranoid. He gets everything, that other people are going to get, and he's afraid that everybody has a tumor, and that little kid's always like, it's a tumor, and Arnold Schwarzenegger in his accent always says, it's not a tumor. And so in our family, as our kids watched that when they were little, when we're all excited about something we shouldn't be excited about, somebody inevitably in our family says, it's not a tumor. So apparently it is a tumor. And apparently that's what's plaguing the Philistines, because they have this ark, or at least they are making the connection, right? So they've got this stuff that maybe they shouldn't have. And I know that because in our own family, my siblings and I laugh because we've dealt with mom and dad's stuff so much. It's kind of funny sometimes when something weird happens, we're like, okay, is there just bad juju around mom and dad's stuff? Have we dealt with mom and dad's stuff for so long that it's just, why does bad stuff happen? And like when we transport and share mom and dad's stuff, we're like, don't have an accident. It would be terrible to have an accident because we're dealing with mom and dad's stuff. Maybe that's what they bring. Maybe we need to smudge everything. Maybe we need to cleanse the whole thing. Our brains go in the most weird places, right? So they've taken the ark, the Philistines, and okay, I like to imagine that the ark is in the tent, right? And Dagon's on the shelf. And is there somebody who's an Israelite sympathizer in the Philistine camp? Can't you just see him with like a 5-foot pole reaching through the back tent and tipping Dagon off the altar, And then going back to their tent, and then they put Dagon up. And the next night they take a pole and they tip Dagon off the altar, and pretty soon the Philistines are like, oh my gosh, we took this, and it's stuff, but it's important stuff, and we really shouldn't have this, and now we're getting tumors. And Dagon's fallen off the altar. Chris, would you put up that first slide? So Dagon is a god for the area, really, you'll see those representations of Dagon in the area of the Mediterranean, and Phoenicians knew Dagon as a god, and Dagon was a merman. Dagon was somebody who could function on land and function in the water, and so people not only had Dagons in the temple, but they had Dagons in their own worship centers at home. You could have a pocket Dagon, like a little worry stone that you could keep with you to keep your god with you. So Dagon is an important god, not just a small god, but a big god. So Dagon's fallen off the worship center, right, at their temple, and they're sure that it's because the Israelites' God is coming after you. You can take it down. Thanks, Chris. So not only might there be a Dagon statue in the temple, but you could also have a pocket Dagon, like a worry stone, to put at your home altar. The fact that the Dagon statuary in the temple is falling over and never has before is only falling since they brought the Ark of God into their temple frightens them, and they're ready to get it out of there. So what do? It's like we've all had an employee or a colleague or somebody who was not the best employee. And do we tell the next person? No, sirree. We just pass them on and let the next person deal with the hard stuff, right? That happens all the time in employment. When I learned early on, when you're doing a job interview and you call those references, listen to what they don't say. Right? Because you can get in lots of trouble these days saying the wrong thing about somebody in your employ. So listen to the silence. So here they have Dagon. They don't want Dagon. Funky things are happening with the ark, and so they're going to pass it on. So they call together the rulers. What shall we do with the ark of God of Israel? Have it moved. Let's send it to Gath. But after they moved it, God's hand was against that city. God afflicted the people of that city with an outbreak of tumors. So they sent the ark of God to Ekron. The people of Ekron said, they have brought the ark of God of Israel to us to kill us and our people. So they called together all the rulers, and they said, send the ark of God of Israel away. Let it go back to its own place. When the ark of God had been in Philistine territory 7 months, the Philistines called the priests and said, what shall we do with the ark of God? And they said, well, if you're going to return it, send it back with a gift, a guilt offering. I'm not talking GILT like a golden offering. I'm talking guilt. Like, feel bad about this and send back a guilt offering. Okay, we've all done that, right? Something we shouldn't do, something we shouldn't have. Okay, what are your guilt offerings? You don't have to say them out loud, but you know. What's your go-to guilt offering, you know? A cake, a loaf of bread, an I'm sorry card. I'll take you out to dinner. I mean, we all do this. These folks and we are not that dissimilar, right? So they're like, okay, send it back, yeah, get rid of it, and send a guilt offering. And if you want a riot of a read, go to chapter 6 of 1 Samuel and read about the guilt offering that they sent back. It's just, anyway, it's funny. At least it is to me. So they did this. They got rid of the ark. Well, it doesn't say that. They did this. They went straight up toward Beth Shemesh, and the people of Beth Shemesh said, ooh, who can stand in the presence of the holy God? To whom will the ark go from here? They sent messengers to the people of Kiriath Jearim, and they said, the Philistines have returned the ark of God. Come down. Take it up to your town. Okay, listen to the up part, because in a bit we're going to look at some maps that I want you to look at. So the men of Kiriath Jearim came, took up the ark, they brought it to Abinadab's house, and they consecrated it, and they told his son Eleazar, you're going to guard the ark of God. And the ark remained there 20 years in all, which is a long time when you figure the lifespan, right, of people that time. So it's back in the possession of the Israelites. This thing that is really not the covenantal relationship. It's a thing representing that. So finally, all is well. The ark is back with the people of Israel. But in those short 7 months while it was gone, what did they do? They did not stay faithful. The ark was missing, and they thought God wasn't with them because the ark was gone. And so just like the Philistines, they pulled out their gods. Chris, can I have that first picture? So they pulled out their little gods of Ashtoreth, who she was the female deity, the counterpoint to Baal, like not B-L-L, but B-A-A-L. So they pull out their gods because they're going to cover their bases, right? You want to put the picture of Baal. So again, you can have these statuaries in the temple. You can have them at home at your worship center. You can have little pocket ones. I distinctly remember being, 15, and I was in a car late at night in the back seat without a seatbelt, because that's how we did it when I was growing up. And I remember being in a car doing something I shouldn't have been doing. And I remember sitting in the back seat of the car and saying, God, if you just get me home safe, I will never do this again. I remember bargaining, right? Covering my bases with God. If you just let me get home safe, I'll never do this again, never do this again. So these folks, they're covering their bases, right? They're hedging their bets. The ark has only been gone 7 months, but what are they doing? They're pulling out their gods. You can take it down, Chris. They're dusting them off, and they're beginning to worship idols again. When our faith is tested, what do we pull out of our closet? What do you pull out? What do you dust off? What do you worship? What is it that you grasp onto that gives you comfort, even though you know that's not really what's going on with you and God? Even if it's false, even if it's fleeting. And I have to think about that, about the sanctuary building. What are our idols? What are our golden calves in our worship? Is it this building? Is it our stained glass windows? is it, and I'm going to risk saying this, for those of you that were at Congregational Forum in the fall, we had a proposal to change how we distribute our outreach money. Because for years and years and years, we've distributed certain amounts of money to certain entities. And the big five, which is the denomination, and the college, and the Cedars, and the seminary, and the district. So those big five are our golden calves. We don't mess around with our outreach to those big five. Well, finance team did a bunch of work, did a whole bunch of study, spent a lot of time to figure out allocations, to do some assessment, and they brought a proposal to Fall Congregational Forum to change the dollars and how that goes out. Baby. We found out that distribution in those amounts is a golden calf, and we're going to honor that golden calf, and we're not going to budge on that. We all have them. I'm not trying to say that's good or bad. It's just that to pretend that we don't have our sacred things that we pull out and we misrepresent of God, that's not true. We have an organ that needs dire work, and we're going to do that work next fall. And that first step of that has already been paid for. But then what? Okay, because then there's a second step, because we're going to go up in the chambers in the fall, and they're going to pull the pipes and they're going to redo the leathers, because, okay, right, you got to have air to make pipes work, and those leathers are original, and they're, okay, so all that has to be pulled and cleaned, and that pipe chamber is not temperature controlled. There's no air conditioning and no heat in that pipe chamber. So you can imagine what's happening to the leathers in that pipe chamber. So we're on the queue. We've paid our contract. It's been signed, and Beatty Organ from Lincoln, Nebraska will be down hopefully in the fall. We'll see, because if they call 2 weeks before Advent, we're probably going to say, could we wait? Or is that a sacred cow of having our organ over Christmas we can let go of? I don't know. We're going to see, right? We're going to decide those things. So what are our sacred cows? So they get the ark back, and Samuel is trying to do God's will, because he said, I'm going to be your person, right? I'm going to remind the people. The ark came back. The people of Israel turned back to God. Samuel said to the Israelites, if you are returning to God with all your heart, then rid yourselves of your foreign gods, the Ashtoreths, commit yourself to God, serve God only. So the Israelites put away their idols, the Baals and the Ashtoreths, and they once again served only God. Then Samuel said, I want you to assemble at Mizpah, and I and God will intercede for you. So really, we get this whole, the rest of chapter 7 and into 8, we get this story of really Samuel's life, and Samuel obeying God's call on his life no matter what. Chris, could you put up the first picture of the maps? So, in our news, Israel, the Gaza Strip, Syria, Lebanon, I hope y'all are pulling up maps. I hope you're looking at what we're talking about geographically, right? How many thousands of years was this? And what was going on? Warfare, right? Look at that picture to the left. Orient yourself to the Mediterranean, out to the edge. Look at the plain, right, coming up from the Mediterranean. And then we hit peaks, and we go up and see that deep river valley. That's the Jordan River. The Jordan River is below sea level. It's a deep, deep rift, and it runs between the Sea of Galilee and the Dead Sea. So this is what we're talking about geographically, and all those towns and all those places are what are happening in 1 Samuel, and we tend to think, oh yeah, that's an old story. Guess what? Open your news today, right? It's not an old story. And the reason the Philistines had such amazing luck when the Israelites were in their territory is because the Philistines were down on the plains. So they could use chariots and horses in warfare. But as the United States has found out in Vietnam, the first place, right? Vietnam was a whole different way of fighting warfare. And then all you had to do was drive by Fort Riley and watch the change in the color of the military equipment, right? When we started to intervene in the Middle East, what happened to the military equipment? What happened to fatigues? What happened? Everything went from green camo to sand camo. Okay, so think about where we are. Think about what's happening. Think about the fights that are going on. And would you roll to the next picture, Chris? I think this is an interesting picture because what it really is showing is when Samuel became judge, every quarter he went to a different city and he sat and he heard complaints and he settled arguments. And so he did a rotation, a quarterly rotation. And his home was actually at Ramah. You may remember that Eli's home and anchor was the temple at Shiloh. But Samuel anchors himself at Ramah and he makes a circuit, an annual circuit in these places. So look at the geography, right? He's up in the mountains, not down in the valley. He has to bop down a little lower into the Jordan River Valley to be at Gilgal. But this is the terrain that we're talking about here. And then I think there's a final picture, Chris, that really shows the four, oh, maybe not. Anyway, that's fine, that's fine. Is there another one after that, a geographical picture? No, that's it, right? Okay, so yeah, just an aerial view of the terrain and something we're getting used to seeing now. So that's fine, Chris, you can take those down, thank you. When they had assembled at Mizpah, they drew water, poured it out before God. On that day they fasted and they confessed, "We have sinned against God." We might do well to follow that pattern, right? How have we sinned against God? When the Philistines heard that Israel had assembled, the rulers of the Philistines came to attack them. And when the Israelites heard it, they were afraid. But Samuel took a suckling lamb, made a sacrifice on God's behalf. And that day God thundered with loud thunder against the Philistines, and they were routed before the Israelites. And then they did that. Samuel goes, he sets up an altar. And then as the chapter concludes, the author of 1 Samuel once again reminds us what a good leader Samuel was. Always doing God's will, and in turn, God is blessing the people with peace. Throughout Samuel's lifetime, the hand of God was against the Philistines. The towns from Ekron to Gath that the Philistines had captured were restored. Samuel continued as Israel's leader all the days of his life, and from year to year he went on a circuit from Bethel to Gilgal to Mizpah, judging in those places, always going back to Ramah. Great conclusion, right? Great. Samuel's great. He answered the call. He did what he's supposed to do. Seems like such a wonderful lesson for us, and we all go away feeling good. Answer God's call in your life. Remain responsive and faithful. God will bless you. It's all tied up with a bow. But wait, there's more. Right? There's always more. Why is it in the span of human history we're never satisfied? What is that about our nature to never be satisfied? The grass is always greener, right? So as Malia talked about, things are going great. And what do the people want? They're not happy. They want a king because they want to be like their neighbors. Okay, what do you have in your house or your car or on your body that you bought because you wanted to be like your neighbors? All of us have done it, right? That's why marketing works, because it puts influence on us and makes us want things. What are the things? What are the things, I hear it here, what are the things if we just had, we'd be, wow, better at the McPherson Church of the Brethren, right? If we just had more young families, if we just had more money, if we just had a basketball court in our education building, if we just had better parking, if we just had. God's people now and God's people then are rarely satisfied, even when the reality is, and there was peace. Samuel grew old. He appointed his sons as Israel's leaders. Remember what happened to Eli, right? His sons disobeyed. Okay, get a load of this. Samuel's sons did not follow his ways. They turned aside after dishonest gain. They accepted bribes, and they perverted justice. So the elders of Israel gathered and came to Samuel at Ramah. They said, "You're old, and your sons do not follow your ways. So appoint a king to lead us, such as all the other nations have." Poor Samuel, right? He has spent his life dedicated to the people, dedicated to God, doing the right things, thinking he's on track. And what do? They come and say, "Out with you. Crucify, crucify, crucify." That's the echo I hear from the New Testament, you know? Jesus doing all the right things, being present for people. And what do? Crucify him. Samuel's bereft. He goes to God. He prays. Here's what they say. And okay, so God, what God does to Eli is he says, "Your boys are bad, and I'm going to cease for you to exist." And Samuel does all the right things, and Samuel's boys are bad. And what does God say? Give them what they want. Give them what they want. Such an interesting response in 1 Samuel. Not, "I'm going to get rid of you," but give them what they want. Because who becomes the first king? Saul, right? This is where we're establishing the genealogy and the line that's a direct line to Jesus. This is where it all begins. So God says, go back to them, tell them all the terrible things that are going to happen. Okay, listen to this in context of our politics today. As people are campaigning, right, what are they promising? Do you believe that they can do everything they campaign? They got to work with Congress, right? They got to work with the cabinet. They got to work with the economy. They got to work with, okay, so promise all you want, but the reality is, reality's going to hit. So God says, tell them the king is going to take your sons and make them serve with chariots and horses. Tell him the king will assign your sons to be commanders of thousands and commanders of 50s. He will assign your children to plow his ground and reap his harvest, to make weapons of war. He will take your daughters to be perfumers and cooks and bakers. He will take the best of your fields and vineyards and olive groves. He will take 1/10 of your grain and your vintage, your male and female servants, the best of your cattle, your donkeys. He will take 1/10 of your flocks. You will become slaves, and when that day comes, you will cry out for relief from the king you have chosen. And the people did not listen to that. What did they say? We want what we want. We want a king. That's what we want, because we want to be like our neighbors. Are we listening at the McPherson Church of the Brethren? What are we wanting, and what do we think it's going to get us? And is that what God is calling us to? How discouraging for Samuel, how discouraging for God. And even after listing all the ways a king will be bad, we want to be like other nations. So God tells Samuel how to call a king. And the first king he calls is Saul, and that's a funny story in chapter 9. Chris, would you show that last slide? Why donkeys? Because Saul is the son of Kish, and his father has lost his entire herd, flock, I don't know what, a dray. What do you call donkeys? A herd of donkeys? Herd, I don't know. Anyway, the donkeys are missing. And so Kish says to Saul, take a servant and go out and search for my donkeys. So imagine the geography, right? He's up on the hills and there's nooks and crannies, and Saul's out with his servant and he's just wandering all over. He can't find those stupid donkeys. And finally the servant says, let's go home. Dad's not going to know where we are. He's going to wonder about us. We haven't found the donkeys. And the servant, the underling, says, I heard there's a really wise man of God. Let's go see him. Maybe he can tell us where the donkeys are. And who is that wise man? Samuel. Talk about a meet cute, right? We talk about movies and a meet cute. So a meet cute is how you get two characters together. So the meet cute with Samuel and Saul is because of donkeys. That's how they meet each other. You can take it down, Chris. Thank you. And then God says, this is the one. Samuel does not question God. God presents Saul, a man looking for donkeys. We do not hear Samuel argue or moan or turn away from God. This most unlikely person in the most unlikely place is the one that God is calling into service. What might we at the McPherson Church of the Brethren think differently about? What are we thinking about? New perspectives on Bible school, right? We may soon be called to have a new perspective on insurance for our facility. More information to come. Are we called to have a new perspective on this, a talking head on a Sunday morning? Are we called to have a new perspective on what we do on Wednesday nights? Because that's church too. What are we doing? What's working? What's not? What new people and perspectives are needed? And how are we going to connect? For working folks, we're going to meet out at Wagner's. I'm still a working person. I can go, you can't, you're retired. I'm going to go have s'mores and connect with people who are dealing with life the way I'm dealing with life. Samuel doesn't give up. God doesn't give up. We try again and again. We listen, we engage, we obey. We keep trying. And Samuel anoints Saul, and Saul is made king. Do you see the man God has chosen? There is no one like him among all the people. Long live the king, said the people. Samuel explained the rights and duties of kingship. He wrote them down on a scroll, deposited them in the temple before God, and then Samuel said to the people, go home. Go to your own homes. You know, when Samuel was a kid and he was sleeping on the pallet in the temple, and he heard the voice of God. He didn't know what his life was going to look like. He didn't know what God planned for him. He didn't know what God would do in his lifetime. And we do not know. What is God calling us individually to? What is God calling this congregation to? Whose heart will God change? Where will the Spirit take up residence? Here's what we do know and what we have learned. When God calls, the only responsible requirement is for us to say, speak. Your servant is listening. May it be so. Amen. Usually we take a moment between now and the song. We're going to move right into the song. I'm aware of the time. I'm aware of the length of my comments today, so I invite you to please rise and join in our sending song. When we respond to God, when we promise to listen, when we promise to serve, we will face so many questions and dilemmas and frustrations and mysteries. It's not a smooth ride. Life is hard, and this is what it means to be fully human. It's right and proper that we will have more questions than answers. So I pray this week, as you go about the business of your everyday lives, as you struggle, as you question, as you rant and rave and rejoice, I pray that you will find that point of center, that point of calm, that place where God resides within, that place where we can let go and let God, the place where we can simply and completely just trust and obey. May you be blessed this week. Amen.